Hey guys, I don't know how obvious it is on camera, but it feels really obvious because it's really obvious to me as I'm talking. I have a cold right now, and right now, like, all of my symptoms pretty much are concentrated in my throat. So I'm also, like, congested up here and in my nose and stuff, but mostly the main thing right now is that my throat hurts really bad and my, like, voice is weird and I keep coughing. So I'm going to try and keep this video as brief as possible. So this is going to be my January wrap-up and February TBR video. I managed to read a grand total of 2 books in January, which was not that great, and I read both of them towards the end of January because I was getting behind on my Goodreads reading challenge. I still am behind, and I didn't make it last year, so I was like, I need to really focus on reading. And so I managed to get through 2 books before the end of the month. The first book I finished in January was Twin Souls by Delcherie Gladden, which was one of the books from the Gods and Mortals anthology that I got for free. It is based on the Tewa culture, which is a Native American nation, but the writer is white, which immediately at the beginning, because I researched whether she was Native American or not before I started reading the book, and so I was kind of cautious going into it, and there were some things that made me uncomfortable in the book, like how it dealt with the culture it was dealing with, but I'm still doing some research of my own into the culture to kind of compare what the author does with like actual Tewa stories. I haven't rated it yet, and I'll talk more about all of it when I do my actual review for that book. The other book that I finished this month was this one, which I don't know exactly what the title would be. The English on the front will NHK Travel and 111 Things You Need to Know to Enjoy Kyoto. So this has English and Japanese in it, so you can see English, Japanese. It's very short, very brief. This was in the apartment when I got to Japan, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It's a nice book. It introduces you to a lot of different things in Kyoto, but there's not that much information there. It's a good starting point, I think. If you see something that seems interesting to you, then you can go look up more of it yourself. I like how it's separated into the different neighborhoods in Kyoto, because that makes it easy when you're like thinking about where you want to go in Kyoto and things. It was a nice book. Now on to my TBR. I'm going to include 5 books, even though I highly doubt I'm going to read 5 books. The first one was on my TBR last month, when it's the Genki 1, an integrated course in elementary Japanese. You can see my notebook is in here because I'm taking notes. I'm that far in it. But yeah, still just studying this. Right now I am currently reading another book from the Gods and Mortals anthology called Blood Debt by Nancy Strait. It deals with centaurs, which is interesting because I've never read a book about centaurs, and I have to admit that at first it felt like they weren't actually centaurs, because they're not half horse, and it was like there was this whole thing about, well, we were never half horse, that was just a myth, and it felt like they were just like generic magical beings, and I was like, what's the point of marketing this as a centaur book when they don't feel like centaurs, like there's nothing making them special from other magical beings they could have been. But that's changing as I read the book because some stuff is coming up, and I don't know. This is definitely not the best book I've read. The writing itself is not very appealing to me, but the story is interesting enough that I am kind of getting into it, and I kind of want to read the next book because I'm close to the end, and I like already want to read the next book to see what happens, because even though the writing itself I really don't like, the plot is interesting enough that I want to see where it goes. So we'll see what I end up rating it. I'm not really sure what I'm leaning towards right now. Then I want to read The Confluence by Pooja Guha, which was in my TBR last month as well. It takes place in 2045. The main character is writing a letter, I think, to her son, and the story is how she comes to adopt her son. So The Forgotten Ones takes place in Ireland. It deals with the like ancient Irish pantheon, like all of the gods that the ancient Irish worshipped, before Christianity came, which I know nothing about. So this is going to be dealing with mythology that I have no idea about, which could be really interesting, and I'm hoping that it's done well and in a way that I enjoy, since it will be my first experience with this mythology. And the last book on my TBR is one I'm really excited about. It's Harry Potter, A History of Magic. The British Library did a thing with Harry Potter, and they released a book about that. This is not necessarily Harry Potter stuff. So see here, this art, so a witch and her familiar, so it's a drawing, an actual historic drawing of a witch and her familiar. Not actual historic as in the witch existed, but historic as in someone a very long time ago in 1621 or something drew this of a witch. And so it has a bunch of stuff like that, and it looks really interesting as someone who really loves Harry Potter but also really loves history. So I find this all very interesting, and I am really excited to look through this and read the whole thing. So that is it for my TBR and wrap up. I'm actually surprised my voice held up as well as it did, though I haven't been talking for the past 2 days, so I think I'm starting to exhaust what I have of my voice. I will see you later. Bye.